My name is Anya Sharma. I'm 45 years old, and for the last 20 years, I've been a ghost. But wait, before we dive into this story of humiliation and epic vindication, I need your help to keep this channel going. For us to continue bringing you stories like this every single day, your engagement is the only payment we ask for. It costs you nothing, just a single second, but for us, it makes all the difference. So stop everything right now and smash that like button hard. If you aren't part of our legion of stories yet, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a thing. And so I know how far our stories are reaching, comment down below what city and state you're watching from. I want to get to know every single one of you. Done? Awesome. Now, get ready. I don't haunt the gleaming hallways of our modern tech campus, Omnitech Solutions, a place of glass walls, free kombucha, and loud synergy pods. No, I haunt the digital basement. My office, if you can call it that, is a small windowless room in sub-level 3, perpetually bathed in the cool, sterile air and the low, sacred hum of the servers that housed the company's original heart. Not the new, flashy heart that beats in 1,000 rented cloud servers across the globe, but the first one. The one everyone conveniently forgot. I'm a systems architect, a programmer, but that's too simple. In truth, I'm a digital archaeologist. My specialty is the Nexus code. 25 years ago, fresh out of college and brimming with a belief in the elegant power of pure logic, I was part of the small, brilliant team that wrote it. Nexus was the foundational operating system upon which our multi-billion-dollar fintech empire was built. It was elegant, powerful, and as complex as an ancient living language, a language that now only I could speak fluently. The rest of the company and the tech world with it had moved on. They built flashy applications on top of our old foundation, piling on layers of modern code that were faster, prettier, and, in my opinion, more fragile. My job was to stay behind in the quiet hum of the server room, a digital Vestal virgin, tending to the old flame and making sure the foundation of their shiny new world never cracked. My boss, Blake Jenfin, saw me as part of that foundation, old, obsolete, and taking up valuable headcount. He was a man half my age, with a suit that cost more than my car, a haircut that required architectural diagrams, and a vocabulary comprised entirely of buzzwords like disrupt, paradigm shift, and agile workflow. He managed the cool teams upstairs, the ones with whiteboards full of frantic scribbles. He hated having me on his payroll. He would visit my dungeon, as he called it, about once a month, always with one of his new star employees in tow, as if showing them a museum exhibit. He'd stand at the doorway, refusing to step inside, as if the air was contaminated with obsolescence. Anya, just giving you a heads up, the board has approved the final budget for Project Sunset. We're finally migrating the last of the core accounts off this relic. We'll be pulling the plug on Nexus by the end of the quarter. I just nodded, my fingers never ceasing their dance across my keyboard. The migration will have cascading stability issues if you don't account for the legacy data protocols, Blake. The architecture isn't a simple lift and shift. I've sent you the report. Yes, your reports, he said with a dismissive wave. We have a team of top-tier engineers on it. I think they can handle it. He looked at me, his eyes gleaming with annoyance. You know, you should really think about upskilling, Anya. The future isn't written in this digital Latin. Don't think you can just slack off on your way out either. Your reputation in this valley depends on a smooth transition. I knew then my time was coming, so when his assistant summoned me to his glass-walled office upstairs, I wasn't surprised. The journey up in the elevator felt like ascending to a different planet. His office was bright, sterile, and minimalist, overlooking the entire city. It was a place for people who believed they owned the future. He didn't ask me to sit. He leaned against his standing desk, a portrait of smug corporate efficiency. Anya, he began, his voice a thick syrup of fake sympathy. As you know, Omnitech is always evolving. We're restructuring our engineering departments to create a more agile and forward-facing synergy. Unfortunately, as part of this restructuring, your role as legacy systems architect is being sunsetted. Sunsetted, the favorite corporate euphemism for being thrown in the trash. I see, I said. My voice was a flat line. Your official termination date is today, he continued, a cruel glint in his eyes. HR will process your severance, but there's one final task we need you to complete. For our legal archives, before we decommission the Nexus system, we need a complete line-by-line documentation of the entire codebase. I stared at him, my mind reeling. The Nexus code had millions of lines. It was a labyrinth of functions, dependencies, and forgotten patches. Documenting it properly would take a dedicated team months, perhaps years. You want it done by when? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. End of day, he said with a thin, triumphant smile. Just a high-level overview, of course. For the records. Do your best. HR needs your badge and laptop by 5 p.m. sharp. It was a final, meticulously crafted humiliation, an impossible task designed to break my spirit, to make me feel the full weight of my own insignificance on my way out the door. It was his way of saying, your life's work is so irrelevant that you can summarize it in an afternoon before we hit delete. I didn't give him the satisfaction of an argument. I just nodded. Understood. I walked back down to my quiet, humming dungeon. The fluorescent lights of the upper floors seemed to mock me as I descended back into the cool, dark basement. The humiliation was a physical weight pressing down on my chest. I looked at the main monitor, at the glowing green text of the Nexus code, the digital cathedral I had helped build. This was how it ended. I sat down, took a deep, steadying breath, and began to work. If this was my last day, I would spend it with my old friend. I started documenting not for Blake, but for myself, for the history of it. My fingers flew across the keyboard, a muscle memory that 25 years couldn't erase. I documented the elegant subroutines for transaction processing, the clever recursive loops we built for data verification, the beautiful, logical flow of it all. I smiled as I found lines of code I hadn't seen in years, remembering the debates, the breakthroughs, the camaraderie of the original team. This wasn't just code, it was a tapestry of my life. Around 2 p.m., the symphony of the servers was interrupted. Distant, muffled alarms began to shriek from the floors above. My company chat window, usually a ghost town for me, exploded with a frantic, cascading waterfall of messages. I watched the digital chaos unfold with a strange sense of detachment. It was no longer my circus, no longer my monkeys. But then, I saw it. On my own diagnostic monitor, a tool so ancient it wasn't even connected to the main security dashboard. A flicker. A tiny, anomalous process running deep within the Nexus kernel, using a diagnostic port we built in 1998. It was a ghost, a whisper in the machine. A process so obscure that only I would ever know to look for it. My blood ran cold. The modern security systems were fortifying the castle walls, but the intruders weren't laying siege. They had found a secret, forgotten tunnel in the catacombs. They were using the unmonitored Nexus code as an invisible superhighway, bypassing every modern defense Omnitech had spent hundreds of millions of dollars on. They were already in the throne room. I looked at the clock. 3:15 p.m. My network access, my very existence in this company, would be terminated in less than 2 hours. Upstairs, in the glass-walled war room, it was pandemonium. Mr. Caldwell, the formidable, silver-haired owner of Omnitech, had arrived, his face a thundercloud. Blake was sweating through his expensive shirt, barking contradictory orders, trying to sound competent while his top engineers stared at their screens in horror.
"They're not using any known exploits, sir," the head of cybersecurity yelled over the alarms. "They're like phantoms. They're already in the main treasury servers, initiating transfer protocols. We can't see them. We can't stop them." Down in my dungeon, I could see them perfectly. I was watching their digital footprints glow faintly on my screen. I could see their destination, the company's primary settlement accounts, holding billions. I had a choice. I could finish packing my box of personal belongings, walk out the door at 5 p.m., and let Blake's new agile world burn to the ground. Or I could defend my home. It wasn't a choice. It was an instinct. My fingers became a blur. This wasn't just typing. It was a duel fought in a language no one else spoke. I dove into the labyrinthine code, a place of my own creation. I began closing ancient maintenance ports, rerouting data streams, and activating dormant diagnostic routines to act as digital walls. The hackers, used to an open, undefended highway, suddenly found themselves hitting dead ends, trapped in forgotten subroutines. They were tourists in a city I had built from the ground up. I knew every street, every alley, every secret passage. In the war room, a junior analyst shouted, "Wait, something's happening. The data flow has stopped. They're being quarantined, trapped in some kind of legacy partition." Just as the final transfer command was initiated by the cornered hackers, I played my last card, a kill switch, a beautiful, elegant line of code I had written with my team 2 decades ago, designed to sever the entire Nexus system from the network in case of a catastrophic hardware failure. A command so old, it wasn't even in the modern security playbook. I typed it and hit enter. The transfer failed. The attack was cut clean. The systems froze, then rebooted. The alarms fell into a deafening, beautiful silence. The security chief stared at his screen, his face pale with disbelief. The kill command, it didn't come from our systems. It came from the old Nexus mainframe. That's impossible. It's a dead system. Mr. Caldwell, a man who had built his fortune by understanding every nut and bolt of his company, asked the question that sealed Blake's fate. Who has access to the Nexus mainframe? An engineer frantically typed into his console, "Just one person on the Active Directory, sir. Anya Sharma, from Legacy Systems. Her employment is scheduled for termination today at 5 p.m. Blake looked like he was about to be physically sick. "Get her," Caldwell commanded, his voice low and dangerous. They found me in my quiet server room, calmly sipping a now cold coffee from a mug that said "World's okayest programmer." My personal box was packed by the door. Blake entered first, a deer in the headlights, followed by Caldwell and the security chief. He looked at me, a desperate, pleading expression on his face. "Anya, what did you do?" he stammered. I took a slow sip of my coffee and placed the mug down. "I finished the documentation," I said, pointing to a neat stack of printouts on my desk. "And then I patched the security vulnerability you were all ignoring for the last 3 years. You're welcome." The next hour, I was in Mr. Caldwell's penthouse office. He didn't ask me what happened. He just sat there, reading the logs, then reading my documentation, then looking at me. "For 20 years, he said, finally, his voice full of a weary, profound respect. "You have been the guardian of the foundation of this entire company, and we were all too busy looking at the shiny new penthouse to notice. I have been a fool." He looked me straight in the eye. "The position of Chief Technology Officer for Omnitech Solutions is currently vacant. The job is now yours, if you'll have it." I thought about the years of being ignored, the quiet humiliation, the final cruel joke Blake had played on me, and I smiled. "I accept," I said, "on one condition." "Name it." "I'll need a personal assistant, someone to handle my scheduling, get my coffee, collate reports. It's not a glamorous job, but attention to detail is crucial. I think Mr. Blake Jensen just became available." The final scene of my old life was this. Blake, his face ashen, standing in a small, gray cubicle outside my new, expansive CTO office. He was holding a notepad, his hands trembling slightly. "Miss Sharma," he said, his voice meek, stripped of all its former arrogance. "Can I get you anything?" I looked up from the architectural plans for Nexus 2, the new foundation I was already designing. "Yes, Blake," I said, a smile playing on my lips. "A coffee, black." And then I added, pushing a thick binder across my desk towards him, "These are the reports on legacy vulnerabilities I sent you over the past 3 years. I'll need a detailed summary of why each one was ignored, line by line. Have it on my desk by morning."
The story is over, but our conversation is just getting started. Now it's your turn to talk. I want to know 2 things in the comments, and I want honest answers. First, what would you have done in Anya's shoes? Would you have saved the company that was firing you, or would you have let it burn? Be honest. Second, what did you think of this story of quiet competence and ultimate victory? Was the revenge satisfying? Leave your full opinion. If you made it this far, it's because this story moved you. So if you haven't already, show your strength. Hit the like button so more people see this incredible turn of events, subscribe so you don't miss the next ones, and share this with someone who needs to see justice served. Your engagement is our fuel. See you in the next story.